This is our second video on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. If you missed the first one, watch it here or somewhere, and if you haven't, you probably should because this video only builds off of it. In that video, we look at how Cloudy demonstrates what happens when one puts their value into the acceptance of others. In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off, exploring how Chris and Phil demonstrate the other side of the argument, acting for the benefit of others regardless if you're accepted or praised for it. The characters that demonstrate that for us are Manny and Tim. So, let's go. Manny is such an interesting character. He only has 11 lines in the entire film, yet he's there to make one really simple and profound point. So first, let's look at what he ideals, right here.
I came here for a better life. Pretty great decision, eh?
He wanted to live a better life than what he had, and he says it's a great decision. But cool, I mean, what is his life now? He's behind a camera, helping Sam. He's using his knowledge of the body and health to help people. He uses his skill to fly planes to help save the town. He uses his sense of humor to make people laugh. This is clearly a man with a lot of skills that each have its own identity associated with it. Cameraman, doctor, pilot, comedian. But Manny doesn't put who he is into any of these skills or labels. These are just tools to him that help him facilitate his overarching goal of living a better life, which he defines by doing things for the benefit of everyone. Whether he's a good comedian or not doesn't shake him. It's just a skill. This is something that's very near and dear to me. When you don't put your value into how impressive a skill is, you can get very good very quickly. Because you can objectively look at your weaknesses and failures with the sole purpose of problem solving, finding creative solutions, and getting more practiced and familiar with the craft. A lesson that is very pertinent to Flint.
Wow, you're a lot better than me.
Tim, on the other hand, isn't as single-faceted. He was kind of a hard character to understand at first. It wasn't immediately clear as to why he was so adamantly against Flint's inventing, why he seemingly came around to support his inventing, how any of that had to do with the story of what it means to be great. To better understand why Tim's in the story, I looked at all the reasons as to why he thought Flint should stop inventing.
Flint. Don't you think it's time to give up this inventing thing? Get a real job?
No, why?
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster. No.
Dad, just give me one more chance.
We both know this was an accident.
I know.
Can you look me in the eye and tell me you've got this under control and it's not going to end up in a disaster? Son, look around. I'm not sure this is good for people. Maybe you should think about turning this thing off.
One thing that I think would have made Tim's perspective stronger is if the filmmakers would have made it more clear how familiar he is with all of the times Flint's inventions hurt people. Most notably with
The rappers, yes, they escaped and bred at a surprising rate.
which still strike fear in the eyes of children.
Billy, just play dead.
This is Tim's entire angle. He wants to do what's good for people. And in seeing that Flint's inventing has a pattern of creating problems, Tim suggests to Flint that he just follow the way that he has contributed to society.
I want you to work full-time at the tackle shop.
The tackle shop? Oh, Dad, no.
Tackle is a good career.
Please.
A small-scale job that has provided a useful service to the community, as well as a means to support his family. It's these core value differences between Tim and Flint which creates all of their communication problems. Tim isn't as mature with his emotions or his imagination. And then Flint is too unconscientious to see the reaching consequences of his actions. For instance, ratbirds. So, this creates a language barrier where Flint single-mindedly moves towards his goal, and Tim can't express what he really feels, masking it in metaphor, leaving Flint confused as to what the problem even is. On top of that, Tim doesn't know how to imagine the potential of Flint's inventions, and he isn't familiar with the process of exploring the unknown, which is inherently trial and error. And it's this difficulty in communication which creates the misconception in Flint that his dad isn't proud of him. But he's missing the forest for the trees. Throughout the entire film, it's clear through Tim's actions that he is proud. He wants to be around him and relate to him. He let Flint experiment on him when he was younger. He even trusts him and lets him continue on with the food weather.
All right.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, sure.
He longs for a better relationship with him. He knows that Flint is the only one who can save the town. And in the end, he doesn't say anything about loving him now that his inventions work. He doesn't even mention it. In essence, he says, I've always seen you. I now see that I was wrong in not being able to imagine what success could look like, but I've always loved you. This is how Tim fits into the story. He's an argument for how value and acceptance has to be unconditional for us to live freely.
Thanks for trying to set me straight. Figured it out a little late, I guess.
Tim just does what he thinks is right. He doesn't look to other people to define him. He's a fisherman who owns a humble business. And he assumes that his son understands the same principle.
What did I say?
That he doesn't need to work, achieve anything, or be liked by others for his dad to love him or be proud of him.
Not every sardine is meant to swim, son.
Tim loves Flint for being. The logical end of understanding unconditional value is that you're now free to be broken and in progress. You don't need a label, a badge, a resume to be a worthwhile individual. And because you're free to be in progress, you just are where you are and you practice to be better tomorrow, which enables you to grow very fast. You more objectively see the function of what you do rather than being what you do, and you more effectively use your skills for the core value of benefiting others, rather than splitting that focus between proving your worth. So those are the two sides of the argument. And while the correct path is probably obvious at this point, I'd encourage you to not jump to a side so quickly and sit down and think, why? Because there is no obvious moral choice. We can only have morals based on a greater ideal to move towards. And if there is no greater ideal, then the mayor's way of life is hard to argue against. Because everything's meaningless in the sight of the eventual entropy of the universe. Unless, again, there's a greater purpose to strive for. Which is what Chris and Phil are saying with Flint and Sam. But we'll explore that in our last video on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Thanks everybody for watching. I always want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments, or join us on Discord to further the conversation. There's been some good stuff happening over there. And if you like and find this content valuable, support me on Patreon. It really helps. It's literally the only way this can keep going. So, in card.